Morning. So what I want to talk about today is we will be going over kind of a reintroduction to Maya, and this will be our first assignment for I think it's 3344, something like that. Arts, anyway, advanced animation. Um, so this is to get you guys back into modeling, get you guys back into kind of the mindset of how to use Maya, because I know it's been a little while for some of you, and so that's what we're going to be doing today. So what you should see in front of you in the video is basically just the layout of Maya. So it should be pretty similar to what you're used to. So let's just go and talk about kind of some of the areas really quickly and then get into some of the modeling tools. So right here we have the viewport. It's our main 3D world that we should all be pretty used to. If I go ahead and hit spacebar, that should give me the quad view, and then I should be able to switch over to my perspective. Now if I hold down Alt and left drag, I will be able to rotate around the whatever my focal point is, which right now is going to be the origin point, which is here on the grid. If I use Alt and my right mouse button, I'll be able to zoom in and out. Now I tend to use this quite a bit because it's a little bit smoother than using the middle mouse wheel, which does basically the same thing, but I feel like it jumps just a little bit. And then if I do Alt and middle mouse button, so just hold that down and move around, then you can pan the actual camera from left to right, up and down. Okay, so combining all that, we should be able to move around pretty easily. And be able to just kind of navigate the world however we really need to. Okay. So up here, we're going to have our different tool sets. We have our shelf right here, which is going to have a bunch of different tools that we can use. We have different shelves, one for whatever we're doing. So right here we have one for like NURB surfaces. We have one for poly modeling, which is what we're going to be doing. One for sculpting, which has been added in Maya within, I think, maybe like 5 years ago. Rigging, animation, effects, etc., etc., etc. So we have different shelves here for really quick selections to create different things, different tools, stuff like that. Generally, I kind of have favorites of like things I like to click on for the shelves. Generally, if I want to click like, create primitives or something like that, I'll kind of go into the poly modeling shelf and click on it there. But if you want to actually create a primitive, you can also go under the create button. And then we have a menu under here for NURBs, polygons, volumes, lights, etc. And under Polygon Primitives, we have all the different Polygon primitives that we can use. So generally with modeling, I stick with polygons pretty much exclusively. There are people out there who do NURBs primitives modeling, which is fine. It's, that you get a little bit better results depending on what you're trying to go after, but I like to go with Polygon Primitives. It works, just as well. So usually you'll start off with, something like a sphere, a cube, or a cylinder, just kind of whatever you're working with. So I'm just going to click on cube. It'll pop here, right here in the center. And then we have our tools over here on the left-hand side on this little toolbar that allows us to do different types of selections, paint selection right here, and then as well as our manipulator tools. So we have one for move, we have one for rotate, and then we have one for scale. Now, I do not usually go over and click on these. Usually what I'll do is I'll just use my hotkeys. Q is going to go back to my regular selection tool. W is going to go to my move manipulator. E is going to give me rotation. And then R is going to give me scale. Hang on one second. Okay. So anyway, so kind of talk about like what we can do for starting to model. So kind of the components that you need to be aware of when it comes to these polygon primitives is basically what makes these guys up. So with a cube, for example, you're going to have faces. So faces are going to be, you know, right here. So if I right click, I can go down to face select. This is a face, that's a face, that's a face. You know, we have faces all over this this polygon. But really kind of like what is a face? Let me turn off my symmetry real quick. So a face is going to be really any surface of a polygon that is bordered by 3 or more edges. So edges are going to be really these blue lines right here. And so we can tell that this face has 4 edges. Now what might we call a face that is actually made up of 4 edges? A quad. So that's what we're going to refer to it as. Anything that is made up of 3 edges we will refer to as a tri. So this cylinder right here, the end cap of it is made up of a bunch of tris, and we know that because we're looking at this right here. We have 1, 2, 3 edges, and then we have this point right here where all these edges come together. So this is basically just a crap ton of tris right here, made up of quads on the sides, and then another bunch of tris down here on the bottom. Okay. So we have faces that can be referred to as quads or tris. And if we have something that's more than 4 sides, we need to be aware of what that is too, because I'm going to be checking on you guys for modeling with these. And these are going to be referred to as Ngons. Now an Ngon is kind of a blanket term for anything that has more than 4 sides. So if I go ahead and make like a little sphere here, and say if I go and take one of the edges and delete it, you'll see that now this face actually has what looks like 4 sides. I mean, it looks like you have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sides. And this is actually really important. This is something you need to consider when you're modeling. This is something we do not want. Okay, the reason why is because when we render this or when we smooth it, Maya may not understand how to properly render this surface, because what happens is the edges define the curvature of a surface. And so we can see how these edges here bend slightly as we go up the curve of the sphere. And so that actually defines the shape of the model. And so the thing is, if we get enough of these and start deleting these, Maya doesn't really know how to define that surface. It's kind of just, it's a question mark. It doesn't really understand. And if we go through and actually hit 3, we can see that the topology, which refers to the face flow, how the faces and edges flow over the surface of the model, gets wonky. You'll see where we have vertices that are pulling on the sides here, because as they're being smooth, they kind of want to go off in this direction because they don't have any opposing edges over here to kind of keep them together. So you want to make sure that as you guys are modeling, you want to avoid Ngons as much as possible. Okay, what we really want to go for are going to be nice, neat quads. Alright, so we stick with this as much as possible. Now that doesn't mean that we can't have tris every once in a while. We can do that, like here it does make sense to have some tris, but they do kind of get a little weird, because you'll see here on the end of the sphere does kind of poke just a little bit. And so that can be something we want to maybe avoid depending on what you're modeling. So we do want to try to avoid that as much as possible, but we can use tris a little bit, but I would not rely on them. Okay? So anyway, so that should, give you an idea of kind of what I'm looking for in topology. We need to keep, things either in quads or tris, definitely no Ngons, and that will affect your grade. So make sure you guys do keep an eye on that, and don't let yourselves develop too many Ngons. Okay. So let's talk about another component of these polygons. So we have faces, and faces are bordered by multiple edges, and edges are basically wherever two faces meet. But edges are also basically connecting lines between these points right here. So if I hold down the right mouse button, I can go on my kind of wheel here and click on vertex. And you'll see vertexes, or vertices, as I kind of refer to them sometimes, are basically wherever more than one edge come together, and they kind of hit together on the end. And so this is basically a vertices. It allows you to go through and kind of really change the shape. And we can change the shape of a polygon by any of these methods of clicking on a vertex, a face, an edge, and they all have different kind of ways in which they affect the shape. You know, an edge is kind of localized to just the faces that are around it. A vertex is localized to basically just the surrounding edges, and a face is going to basically affect only itself and then the surrounding faces. So, different ways to kind of manipulate the surface and the shape of this particular model. All right. Okay. So, let's go ahead and kind of make, what can we make? Just kind of as just a really quick little model. Let's do, so in front of me I have a binder clip, a paper binder clip. So these guys are used, you know, if you ever need to put like a bunch of papers together. They're metal. They kind of have like a little, they're made out of 3 different pieces. They have like little metal clip on them that kind of like holds itself in tension. Then you have the 2 pieces that you pinch together to kind of separate them so they hold down on or clamp down on the paper. Let me grab a picture real quick so you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at right here. So really simple, just a little binder clip, and we can make one of these super easy. Okay, so what I want to do to kind of start off with this is we need to kind of flatten out the shape to basically kind of think about like how we want to separate this out. So as I'm looking at this binder clip, it's really made up of 3 different pieces. You have 2 identical pieces that are little pieces that we pinch, and then we have the actual clip portion that the little 2 pinchy portions, I don't know what you call them, actually kind of hook into. So we'll be basically creating 2 different parts, and then I'll duplicate one and then move it down to where it actually will fit. Yeah, so that'll be pretty easy. All right. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit R for scaling, and I'm just going to go ahead and scale this guy down because basically the piece that this thing comes from is pretty thin. It's just like a little piece of metal. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring it out to about here. And this is going to be the back side of the clip. It's going to have a little indentation. And yeah, so it's just going to be kind of like this. So I need to go ahead and create this part right here that comes out and over. So what I'm going to do is actually go in and grab this face and this face, and I'm going to do an extrude. So extrudes can be, the extrude tool can be found under mesh tools. I'm sorry, edit mesh actually. Where do they have it? It's right here. So extrude is right here. Just click it, or you have a shortcut for Control E. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. And then I can actually kind of rotate a little bit. That's kind of giving me a weird look. So actually, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to go back to Edge. And then I'm going to actually kind of angle this up a little bit, because the way I want the topology to flow is it's going to kind of go, the faces are going to flow out and then up like that. So I'm going to scale this in so that when I do another extrude, the faces are going to go out like this, and then I'm going to do another extrude that kind of angles in again, and then it goes in like that, if that makes sense. Okay. And because I don't want that piece of metal to get too thick, I'm going to go ahead and kind of thin this out just a little bit right here. And you'll notice that I'm grabbing on both sides. This is so I can keep it pretty symmetrical. You can also go into Symmetry and turn on Symmetry if you want to. So that's actually Object X. It's probably going to be Object Y. Nope. Maybe Object Z. There we go. So that'll give you symmetrical movement if you need it. So maybe that might be easier. You'll also notice a lot of times I'm grabbing, not really the manipulator itself, but I'm grabbing like these little planes. And these are really super handy for me to be able to keep in the plane of movement that I'm looking for. So I can move, kind of universally or freely up and in or out, however I really want to, without accidentally moving left or right. And I really don't want to do that, because I want to kind of keep this as simple as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and move this up like that. And then I also want to kind of flatten this a bit too. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the scale tool, and I'm using that to flatten this shape. Because if you notice beforehand, it was actually just a little bit tilted. And so by using scale, I can quote-unquote scale it or flatten it to the ground plane, essentially. So it basically evens itself out, which is really kind of cool and useful. All right. Okay. I need to go ahead and add a little indentation right here. So what I'm going to do is hold down Shift and then right-click. What that's going to do is give me access to another set of tools. And so this one I want to use is going to be called Multi-Cut. Okay? So Multi-Cut is really useful. If I just click, like say here, and then I go, let's see. No, it's because it has that on. Let me turn off Symmetry real quick. There we go. So if I click like say here and hit enter, it actually will put in an edge for me. Now you'll notice that this can get us into some problems because just by putting an edge here and here, it does create Ngons. Because this side now has 5 faces or 5 sides versus 4 that it originally had, and same thing for the opposite sides. So do be careful with using this. But we can use this as a insert edge loop tool, which this is kind of my preferred way of doing insert edge loops. It's just a little bit quicker for me to do it this way. I feel like Maya is kind of pushing the old insert edge loop tool kind of out as more of a an older skill set, or not skill set, but older tool set that might disappear since multi-cut basically, covers the same thing. But anyway, it's the same tool set. So with multi-cut selected, I can hold down Control, and that actually will put a full edge loop around the face, or the face loop that I'm actually working with. So you'll see that here. Now if I hold down Shift, you'll notice that it snaps it. So it's doing it, I can snap it to the middle. I can do like a quarter, 3/4. Maybe that's a fifth. I don't know. Whatever. But anyway, I really don't care. I just need it to go over to the middle. And I'm going to do Object Z again. And then I'm going to do a cut here. because it actually kind of indents up just a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab this edge and then bring it up just a bit like that. And I want to bring this up as well. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay. It's kind of a curve a little bit. So maybe do something like that. Alright. So what I'm going to need to do now is there's a lip where the actual rods, the little thumb pieces, actually clip into. So I want to go ahead and make sure and get that in there. Let me see if I can find some good pictures. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. So I need to get, like... Come here. Sorry, just trying to get some of these photos here. So I kind of need to get, like, this little detail right here. Where it's kind of folded over and rounded. And there's almost... It kind of sections off into, like, 3 sections, like, right here. Like, 1, 2, and 3. So I'm kind of looking at that. And then it needs to have, like, a little hole or a little tube right through there. Kind of like that. So, anyway, that's what I'm kind of looking at. So, in order to accomplish that, what I want to do is go ahead and go back to my multi-cut. And I want to actually do symmetry, but it's probably going to be symmetry on the X. Yeah, it's going to be on the X. And I'm going to go and put in a couple edge loops. Let's see, one right here. Yeah, so we'll have like 2 right there, so it kind of sections it off. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab these 2 faces. So it's going to be, again, back to Object Z. And I'm just going to scale them in just a little bit. And then bring them in. And yeah, they do kind of like roll out. Almost kind of looks a little bit like lips. Maybe. So something kind of like that. Now obviously like this is not a really good curve right here, but what we can do is go and actually bevel this edge and kind of like smooth it out a bit. But this would be good for like kind of what we're trying to go for right now. This is going to be pretty simple. So I'm going to go ahead and take both of these and I'm going to go ahead and bring them up. Actually, let's go back to... Sorry, I'm just backing up for a second. So I'm just kind of extruding, but then I'm going to scale them up just a little bit. Because I want to kind of like bring these a little bit further away from like this area right here. And then I'm going to go and extrude them out. So what I'm doing right now is instead of basically going with the extrude tool and then trying to move these objects, I'm actually hitting extrude and then I'm immediately hitting W to go back into movement. so that then I can freely move them up and out of the way. I find sometimes that the extrude tool can be just a hair restrictive on what I'm actually trying to accomplish. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right here. Actually, I'm gonna go again. So you'll see I hit Control E. You'll see that I have the extrude tool popped up right there, and then I'm gonna hit W, and that's gonna bring me back to the move tool. This is really common. This is something I do like all the time. So just be aware of like what I'm going for. So Control A, W again. And then I'm kind of just making like a loop, but it doesn't connect really. I mean, I guess I could connect it, but like as I look at like this one that's sitting in front of me on the desk, it just kind of rolls under really. It's pretty thin, and it doesn't really connect with the main body. I think it's just one piece of metal. They have like a machine that folds them into shape. So yeah, I think it just needs to fold under, essentially. And that should be just fine. So I'm just kind of gently just going through and just gradually like rolling this around. And I'm trying not to do it like too quickly. I want to make sure I have a really nice curve as I'm doing this. So did that work? No, that didn't work. Okay, try it again. In a way, it almost kind of reminds me of like a Tim Burton shape or something from like a Tim Burton movie, kind of, I suppose. But anyway, so you get the idea. So one thing I'm noticing right now is it is kind of thick for what this is, and you'll see this actually kind of like extruding through the body, which I don't really like. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of fix that. So what I'm gonna do is go through and just kind of like thin out some of these pieces. So you gotta remember, this is like a really thin little piece of metal. So proportionally, it should stay thin. And I'm gonna be doing this by basically getting a, basically doing a combination of doing edge movement and face movement. I'm not, at this point, I'm not really grabbing like vertices. I don't really need to grab the vertices. I'm just doing it with just doing the edges. So this guy right here is kind of cutting through. So I'm just going to jump into the inside and kind of grab some of those edges. And it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world if it's cutting through, but I'm trying to stay kind of true to the shape. And that's one thing with the project that I'm having you guys do this week, is I want you to kind of think about how something might work in the real world. And so in the real world, these little binder clips are just folded. They're not welded. They're not joined. When they're rolled, they're just simple pieces. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to mimic here, is kind of their real world look. And so that's what I'm looking to get out of you guys for this assignment, is kind of a real world appreciation for the engineering that kind of goes into these really simple little objects. So anyway, gonna go and bring this over, and then even like I think this one's actually probably a little thick. That feels wonky. I must have moved that at some point, so I need to fix that. So I'm going to go and actually move that over. So anyway, if this is getting wonky on me, what you can do is go in and use the scale tool and just kind of scale it in. And we'll scale it in that way. And that should straighten her up. I think I have a few things that are a little weird. Okay, so that should be good. Yeah, I don't know what happened with that, but whatever. Alright. So I'm looking at kind of the width of this as it goes through, trying to keep it more proportional. I'm also trying to keep this kind of as a simple shape at this point, because this can get, this binder clip is simple in terms of its geometry, but it can get complicated really fast if you start trying to add like too many extra edge loops and trying to do too much of a complicated curve or whatever. So we don't really want to do that quite yet. You want to try to get in, basically hammering in the general shape before we really try to do too much detailing. Okay, kind of think of it as like when you're in life drawing. You know how you don't do, or you don't go after the high-res details immediately. You have to get your gesture drawing in there first, right? So this is basically the same thing, is we're getting in the gesture of this shape before we start putting in like some of the finer details and really resolving what this thing should look like. Okay, so what I did is I just kind of brought in the edges here to kind of make it look a little bit more uniform. And I think that will work. Okay, so what I want to do is go ahead and kind of smooth out this curve right here and make it look a little bit nicer. So what I'm going to do is actually grab a few of these edges and see if we can kind of do it like in one go. I doubt we will, but it'll be fun to see if we can try. And probably fail. But whatever, that's the fun of it, right? Okay. Alright, so anyway, what I want to use is under Edit Mesh, I believe. It's Bevel right here. The Bevel tool is kind of cool because we can go in and you'll see how it automatically kind of splits each one of these edges. And so we can go under Fraction, and you'll see it actually allows, if I click and drag on Fraction, it actually allows us to kind of like section or change the section of each one of these. We can also do segments. So if I want to add extra segments and kind of smooth it out, I can do that. I'm not going to do that yet. Really, I just kind of want to get like an extra section here, kind of see where I need to really add in some more, basically some more segments or whatever. So I definitely need to add something in here, probably in here. And this may not really be the best option for a bevel right now, but we can kind of see where we're going to have to go back in and add it. So definitely right there. Definitely. I'm going to go and do a multi-cut like here, here. And then I'm going to add in one here, and one there. Okay. I think this one actually got a little too high. Let me fix that. So I don't want to go back and basically undo everything I just did. So what I'm going to do is actually just delete this edge and then redraw it back in. Now, your instinct probably says hit the delete key. And it looks like that would be the right case. However, a problem that we're going to run into is that your vertices are still going to be present. So, don't hit the delete key. What you got to do, if you want to get rid of one of these edges, you need to delete the vertices also. Alright? So, in order to do that, we're going to hit Control and Delete. Okay? So, make sure you do that. I'm going to go back to my multi-cut. And I want to make sure I get it in the middle. I think that's probably about right. And now we just redrew that edge back in, so we're good there. Alright? So I'm going to go ahead and take this edge, take both of these since they're basically sister edges. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring them out like that. So it's going to kind of complement that curve. It's going to fill it out just a little bit more. I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'm going to complement the curve. I'm going to just complete it as it goes out. And then we'll do it one more time. Okay. So now it looks much, much rounder, much more natural. I'm going to go ahead and take both of these. move it up just a little bit. Just trying to get kind of a more naturalistic curve. And so I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and take this one and this one. And I'm actually going to bevel these guys. So hold down Shift, right click, Bevel Edge. So that's not bad. There we go. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Alright. I'm going to go and take both of these. If you ever do a tool, or if you ever do, like, say, you know, an action or something, you want to redo it, you can hit G, and it will redo the last used tool. So the last one that we used was bevel. So if I hit G, it's going to bevel it again. Alright, so that's not bad. I went ahead and up the fraction a little bit. Now we're going to run into a little bit of a pinching issue right here. And so what I'm going to do is grab that edge. And the reason why I say pinching issue is because these two edges are really close. And so if we hit 3, it's going to bring them kind of close together and not necessarily be good. So I'm going to go ahead, go back to 1, and kind of separate these guys just a little bit. And that's going to make a little bit more of a natural curve for us, and that's good. Okay. Alright, looks good. Okay, so kind of looking at my reference, I need to kind of bring these guys a little bit closer together. So I think we're okay there. I'm going to go ahead and kind of work with some of the proportions. Kind of widen it just a little bit. Maybe that's too wide. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and grab these vertices here, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring them in just a little bit. Now, I don't really, let me stop that before I get ahead of myself. You know, if I bring this in like this, I'm going to run into an issue where, like, I have to go and, like, grab, like, individual vertices here, here, and here, and then move those in. So what I like to do is hit B as in boy, and that is going to allow me to turn on soft selection. And so if I hold down B and the middle mouse drag, you'll see, like, this little circle pop up right here. This is going to be my area of influence, and you'll notice the color changes as it gets larger or smaller. Okay, so essentially what that allows me to do is I can grab the vertices with soft select on, and as I move it, it kind of stretches the nearby vertices, and so it makes it just a little bit easier to kind of do like a gentle nudge, or almost like a sculpting maneuver, if you will, in order to kind of work with it. All right. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm good with that. Let's go ahead and do the little wire bits that you work with your thumb, and let's see what we can do with that one. So I think what I want to use is probably a torus. One of these guys right here. I'm going to go and turn it up 90 degrees. I'm going to go over here to the channel box and change the rotate to 90, so it's standing up perfectly well for us. And so right now it's really donutty. I need something that's really thin, and I need to actually simplify the surface structure to make it easier for us to work with. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go over to, let's try radius. Yeah, that'll work. So I'm looking for is really kind of thinning out the proportion of the wire that's going to be up here. Because if you look here, it's a fairly thin wire that's actually creating like this piece right here. So my idea is I could take the torus, make this, and then extrude this down and over. And then we'll be done. So I'm going to go ahead and take that. And then we can shrink it down. And something else I need to kind of go in and fix is the fact that I have a lot of subdivisions going around the torus itself. So I'm going to go ahead and take down the subdivisions from 20 to, let's say, yeah, I think 12 will be fine for going around it. And then height-wise, which is actually referring to the ones that go around this way, I'm going to take those down to, let's say, 8. I think that'll be a little bit easier to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and go to face. And I'm going to turn off the object Z, because I don't want it deleting stuff here. Come on, turn that off. There we go. Turn off my soft select. And then hit delete key, and it deletes it. Alright. Now, you'll notice that if I go in and do, like, say, vertices, or click on a vertex and then do, like, say, symmetry, it's going to... Actually, it's doing it fine here. It was doing... Yeah, I was doing, like, Z this way, but I guess X will be fine. Yeah, so that's fine. We'll just do it like this. So what I need to do is basically go in and fill this end cap right here, and then we'll just extrude it down and create the rest of that shape. So what I'm going to do is grab the mesh, or you could just grab the edge that surrounds the hole that we have here. Either way, this will work. I'm going to go to mesh, fill hole, and it'll fill it in. Now, there's a problem here. I have this face right here, but it also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides, and we can't have that. So we need to go in and actually go ahead and basically quad off this face, and for this it'll be stupidly easy. And let me show you how to do that. But for more complex Ngons, you'll need to kind of get a little more creative in how you actually quad things off. But for this, it's really, really easy. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's do multi-cut. And I'm just going to cut from side to side. And so that's going to give me 2 faces. Both of these are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. So if I go in and do it again, 1 here, now I have 4 faces that are 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. So now we have 4 quads, where we had 1 Ngon before. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So I'm going to go and grab these faces and make sure it did on the other side, which is good. You also want to make sure that you don't accidentally grab extra faces when you do this, because sometimes that will happen. Hit Control E for extrude. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull this down, and then rotate the face. And I'm just going to go and give it just kind of a basic shape, like that. Like, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Clearly this is way too big, but we will fix the scale in a second. So I'm just extruding again, and then I'm going to do a slight rotate out. So extrude, rotate, and then move it out, just like that. So it's going to look like that. Something like that, okay? Alright. These are not actually completely round. They look like they're squashed just a little bit right through here. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of pull out to the sides and give it that slightly diamondy shape. I'm going to turn on soft select just a little bit. And go in. And there we go. I'm also going to go and grab these guys right here. And then just kind of pull that in. And so that's going to give us kind of that shape that we're looking for. Now this is kind of a sharp edge. So I'm going to go into the edge right here. And I'm going to hit bevel. And then I'm going to just kind of bring it in like that. So what happens is when we hit 3, you'll see it actually smooths out and give us the shape that we actually are needing right here, which is kind of cool. Alright, cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and get that scale fixed. Alright, so let's go ahead and take, I'm going to flip this upside down. Let's see, make sure it's actually at 180, so I think we're good. And then I'm going to go and scale it. And I'm just kind of going to just fit it, just real simply, just like fit it like right into there. Something like that. Now obviously it's not going to work very well like that, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab, I don't need that. Here, we'll pull you over. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that to 1. Grab these vertices just like that, and then bring it down. Because like these, the pieces that your fingers actually push on go pretty far back, so they can create the correct leverage. And actually, I need to widen this just a little bit too. Something kind of like that. Alright. And you'll notice that as I smooth this, I lost all my definition on the end of this wire. So what I'll need to do is actually go in and reinforce this. And so I call these reinforcement loops. They're really pretty useful in order to keep your shape, or maintain your shape as you're working on or as you're modeling, I should say. So you'll see that now this is kind of a little more reinforced. So I'm going to maybe put one here and there. Okay. Alright, so I need to go ahead and kind of fit this into where it's going to sit here in the binder clip. So what I want to do is actually move the pivot point from the center of the object here up to basically where it's going to be hinging up into here. So it's going to give it a little bit more ease in order to actually fit it and kind of rotate it around. So I'm going to press D as in David and then move it up just like that. And that looks pretty good. Press D again. And then now I can rotate it like that. Alright. So let's move it over. And then I'm going to move it out. There we go. Alright. So, it looks pretty thin down here with the stretching and stuff. It just got a bit too thin. So what I'm going to do is go in and kind of thicken this up a little bit. And I'm going to do that by grabbing vertices and basically go in and scale them out. I'm just going to, scale them out just a little bit like that. Try to get them to kind of thicken out the shape just a little bit more. I'm just kind of adjusting kind of the angle of some of these. Try to keep them a little bit more organized. So something kind of like that. Rotate around just a little bit more. There we go. This kind of cuts off kind of abruptly, and I feel like it doesn't really look that good. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of rotate this over just a little bit. And I'm actually going to go ahead and bevel that. Just like that. See? So now it has a nice smooth transition from there to there. I'm going to do the same thing for here. Just like that. Something just like that for that one. There we go. So we're just kind of refining the shape as we go here. And so that looks pretty good. All right. So what I like to do is go ahead and just kind of duplicate this shape over so it fits into its place on the other side. Now, a couple ways I can do that. Honestly, the first one is I can just take the object, hit Control D for duplicate, move it over, and rotate it just like that. Now, that works. That's fine. It's, you know, totally usable. However, it's not 100% accurate. So if you want to do something with kind of mechanical precision, we can do essentially a duplicate special. Sorry, I just noticed that this doesn't fit very well, so I'm going to move this in just a little bit. There we go. And duplicate special allows us to kind of duplicate, but then add like a transform to the duplicate. So if I do a duplicate, let's say duplicate special now, let me actually kind of bring this up just a little bit. Sorry, I'm kind of adjusting this as I'm talking. There we go. And move that in. That looks better. Okay. Let's make sure everything kind of fits. Alright. Anyway, like I was saying, duplicate special allows us to duplicate with a transformation. And so if I go under, like, say, modify, edit. There we go. Duplicate special. We can actually duplicate and rotate it or scale it in different directions, or even translate it. So, you know, kind of the fun thing is if you do, say, a duplication, I go to edit, let me reset this real quick, and I tell it I want to rotate, you know, let's say 10 degrees on the x-axis, and I want to do that 25 times. Okay, I hit that, it's going to create something like this, which is kind of cool. There's uses for that. Now we're doing something a little simpler. Really, all I want to do is to basically duplicate this over and mirror it to the let's say x-axis, on the other side of the x-axis. So what I want to do is I'm going to go into duplicate special, and let me reset this again, and it's going to be scaling across the x-axis. I believe I should do it through here, scale of -1, and click. So that did not work, so let's try something else. I want to change that from a -1 to a 1. So it's probably going to be Z. And I say Z because if it's Y, it's going to go upwards. So we're going to do a Z. Duplicate special. That's kind of working, but not really what I want. So let's look at this from a different way. Make this a little bit simpler for ourselves. So we have something called grouping. Grouping has a lot of different uses, but let's just say for the sake of the argument that what it's going to do for us immediately is change our pivot point to the origin, which is right here. That's the origin. And if I want to duplicate something across the origin, that grouping makes it really easy to do that. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab this piece right here. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control G. That's going to group it. And actually it should have grouped it to... should have grouped it to the origin point. Sometimes if it does this, what we need to do is go in and just reset. Reset some options in the grouping. I think it's under, there it is, right here. Yeah, so it says group under parent. Group pivot is going to be center. Set that to origin. So that's what the problem was. So I'm just going to unparent to that Shift P. Hit apply. And so now we have a pivot point that instead of being in the center of the object, it's actually at the origin point, which is good. That's what we needed. So I'm going to go to edit again, duplicate special. I'm going to try the -1 again. And that's what I wanted. He gave it to me right there. All right. So a couple other things I like to do with models when I'm finished with them is go to edit, delete all by type, history, and that will delete the construction history that was here previously, and it just cleans up the model. Additionally, I might also go in and modify freeze transformations so that any transformations that we have since we've been moving this thing are frozen and they are basically good to go. Okay, so this is kind of just a really basic primer or reprimer on modeling. Kind of my method is I like to break things up by material type or mechanical movement type. So something like this right here would have a pivot point that would move around. And so I would not make this like one piece with the little clip section because that doesn't really make any sense. You know, if we're going to be rigging it or animating it, we want to have, you know, whatever movement we need in order to accommodate that. So I tend to like to model that way. I feel like that's more true to the real world object, and you get a better result that way. So anyway, I'll go ahead and close out this video. The next one is going to be going into the assignment, and we'll talk about that then. All right.